Good afternoon, Wolfpack. We are excited that you're with us. We have a very, very special live stream with our very, very special guest, Bear of Bear Independent. And today we are talking about Israel and Israel at war. And we want to get right into it. So I want to apologize up front, folks.
We say hello to the whole pack at once.
Yeah, we usually say howdy to everybody, and it's a lot of fun, and we get a lot of great interaction and usual banter up front. But I want to apologize that we're going to skip, because we're on a tight timeline, and we've got we're just going to skip salutations and some of the usual banter and jump right into it. But we do invite you to share your thoughts, your comments. Your being here with us during this live stream is very important. It's one of the things that I think brings this Wolfpack community together, being able to interact with you and get to know you. So forgive us for not all the shout outs that we usually do, etc. But trust us, we are watching. Bobby's going to do his very best to get some of those comments up. And importantly, at the tail end of this, we will make sure that we carve out a little bit of time for Bear to do some Q&A. So if you do have a burning question for the Bear, make sure you put it in all caps.
We might just cover it.
We just might cover it, but we just might not. So Bear, welcome to the Wolfpack podcast and our studio once again. It's been a little while and you look great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love the way you lie to me. You're awesome. I'm happy to be here.
Accept the compliment, Bear. Accept the compliment.
Yeah, my old pastor used to tell me, be a gracious receiver. I'm still working on it. So
it's like you swatted away the compliment. It's like you just went.
Yeah, I dodged it. There was an elbow block in there. Yeah. So Becky shot me an email on Tuesday and was like, hey, Bear, the world is getting kind of weird over there in Israel. Do you have an opportunity? I know it's a long shot to come on and talk to the Wolfpack about what's happening. And I was like, heck yeah, let's do this thing. And so I appreciate y'all reaching out to me. And as I was saying when we were behind the scenes earlier, I'm not a professional at any of this, but this is an area of study for me. And as you know, we do the briefs Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so I'm happy to answer any of the questions you have to the best of my ability.
Right on. Well,
and if you are not familiar with Bear, which I'm sure most of you are, but if you're not, hop over to his channel, like, subscribe, notify, comment, all that stuff. Same with us, because we are brothers and sisters of YouTuber refugee harborers.
And Bear calls you names. If you don't subscribe to his channel, he does call you names. I've heard him do that.
That's been known to happen. And the best thing about it is that you think, like, you tell people to subscribe or go away, you're going to lose a bunch of subscribers. No, it's the exact opposite. Like, some people just need to be yelled at.
Can you do it for our channel right now?
Absolutely. If you are not subscribed to Nutrient Survival, you are probably demented in the head. You need to get yourself checked out. I would recommend the Angry Viking Therapist. So either subscribe, be a person of action, or leave. Don't lurk in the shadows like an FBI agent. Nobody wants that. Commit. For once in your life, commit to something. Crawl out of your mom's basement, set down the Mountain Dew and the Cheetos, grow a pair, and hit the subscribe button. And while you're at it, ring the little bell icon. Okay? Okay.
Wow. I'm going to play that back and try to deliver that next time.
That's your job, Becky, from now on. All right. I've got the commercial. You've got that. All right, Bear, I want to get right into it. Okay. And Becky's got questions of her own here. But the first thing that I want to ask you is, with all of the sophisticated intelligence gathering that we have, that the United States has, that Israel has, that this world has, frankly, since 9/11. Some of it, I think, rather nefarious on us, right? We all know this, but it is the best it's ever been. How in the heck does a surprise attack like this happen?
So that's a huge question that everybody has been asking for the last 5-6 days, and there's a lot of theories around that. I don't know if we will ever know the truth of that, because we all need to do ourselves a favor and remember that information warfare is real, and it is absolutely in play here in this Israeli-Hamas conflict, as it is in Ukraine, as it was with the global pandemic, etc. Egypt, the Egyptian intelligence service, has said that they were telling the Israelis about an impending attack for weeks. Egypt and Israel don't exactly have a long history of friendship. So I don't know if Egypt is saying that simply to rub dirt in Israel's wounds or because they actually did have intel. Some of Bibi Netanyahu's own people inside of Mossad have said that for 3 or 4 weeks, they knew that something was coming, but they didn't know exactly what. And that they were picking up ripples in the ether of Hamas militant movements being made inside of the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. But they they didn't have a global understanding, a big picture understanding of what all these little indicators meant. Hamas themselves have said that they have been planning this attack for 2 years. And so how did they not pick up on this? I don't know. I do know that there's a bunch of people in the alphabet soup agencies on this side of the pond that are asking ourselves the same question, because essentially an attack on Israel is a de facto attack on the United States, because we are the largest supporter and backer of Israel, their best ally that they have. So a lot of people are pontificating as to how we all got caught with our pants down on this. And there's a lot of symmetry being drawn between what's happening in Israel, what has happened in Israel right now, and the 9/11 terror attacks on American soil, September 11th, 2001. This is being called Israel's 9/11. And if you extrapolate the data, the number of people who were killed in the initial attacks by Israel to the population of the United States, it would be the equivalent of Israel losing more than 20,000 people in the opening of these attacks. So that's the scale that they're dealing with. Now, we don't need to jump into the jet fuel doesn't melt steel I-beams rabbit hole here, but there's a lot of people who we know that intelligence services in the United States knew that an attack was coming. They didn't know exactly what it was. Now, if we take a little bit of tinfoil and wrap it around our foreheads, where I think part of what we're seeing here, especially in light of what's happened with the natural gas pipeline and telecom cable that was co-located in between Finland and Estonia, recently being cut as of yesterday, and these attacks by Hamas in Israel, which we know in large part Hamas is trained and funded and supported by Iran, as is Hezbollah, who supports Iran, the Iranians, the Russians do. Who is 200 kilometers from that natural gas pipeline that was just recently cut between Finland and Estonia in the Gulf of, what do they call that thing? The Gulf of Finland, Straits of Finland, whatever it might be. The Gulf of Finland, but roughly between Helsinki and Tallinn, the Russians. And so if it was me, if I was a Russian scumbag and I'm trying to prosecute a war or a special military operation in Ukraine, I would think asymmetrically, how do I get the United States distracted from what's happening in Ukraine? And as you can see, a lot of the funding bills that are being pushed right now by the House and the Senate are tying aid to Israel with aid to Ukraine with a whole bunch of other funding packages. Because as of right now, depending on who you are, I'm happy that, but as of right now, funding to Ukraine is essentially on hold because of what's happening in Israel. So if I was a Russian scumbag, this makes perfect sense asymmetrically to fund a hit in Israel by Hamas, Hezbollah, to get the United States off kilter so that we can continue to prosecute the war in Ukraine. Intelligence-wise, how did they miss this? There will probably be people to their last breath arguing that they didn't miss it, they let it happen. It seems to be that there were indicators that an attack was coming, but those indicators were never tied together to get a global picture of there is an attack coming, it's happening on this date, everybody look out and be ready. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. I think that's the most cogent explanation, or even theory of who's behind this thing. I mean, I've seen certainly a lot about Iran and their fingerprints being all over this thing, from former military, former intelligence. And let's face it, even if it wasn't Iran, who is denying it, if it wasn't Iran, we all know that Iran, they love to hang out with Russia. They love to hang out with North Korea. They love to hang out with China. They're all in cahoots with each other. So even if it wasn't directly Russia, which I think is certainly plausible for all the reasons that you talked about, right? Distraction, and let's divert resources. Let's put the Ukrainian support on hold, which is waning support, by the way, right? At least with the American people, from what I can gather. So I think that's all very, very plausible. But I'm very curious though that if it wasn't Iran, we've got this other $6 billion that's sitting over, in a cold freeze now because it was not $1 going over there. Well, we all know money is fungible. If they're not spending it on food, they're going to spend it on weapons, right? So if they had nothing to do with it, why is that on hold, right? Why all of a sudden, like, oh, well, hey, we're going to put that on hold now until we sort through it? Is that the idea?
Well, not only is that money on hold, but as much as Iran would love to say we had nothing to do with it, they are documented fact for decades, have trained Hamas, equipped Hamas, have trained Hezbollah, have equipped Hezbollah. The IRGC, Iranian, I forget what the hell that acronym stands for, guard, their Quds forces, I believe it is directly tied to Hezbollah. They train those people. They provide support to those people. And that's just to the north of Israel in Lebanon is essentially where you're going to find those scumbags. And then on the day of the attacks, you have the Iranian parliament, all of them in unison on camera, jumping up and down and screaming, death to Israel, death to Israel, death to Israel.
Well, that's nothing
and then
new.
as of today, the Iranian foreign minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian said during a meeting with Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani on Thursday that nobody in the region needs to speak to Tehran to seek permission to open a new front against Israel. In other words, saying, hey, you don't need our permission to go over there and help your brothers in arms, the Palestinians, fight against Israel. So they're giving implicit approval for anybody else in the region to pile on Israel.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, that big aircraft carrier group that we've got sitting in the Mediterranean right now is going to hold some of those other bad actors at bay. But you think about the timing of this, and so if this has been planned for 2 years, right, and there's a sense that it's going to happen at some point in time, wouldn't you think the 50th anniversary of the Yom Kippur, right, the Yom Kippur War, right, would be a good time to attack?
Absolutely. And not only is it the 50th anniversary plus a day of the Yom Kippur War, a lot of people don't realize that this past Saturday, when the attacks took place, was not just a Shabbat, the biblical day of rest. It was also the 8th day of the festival of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. And that is the holiest, high holy day of the year. That's the same day when Messiah stood up in the temple and said, anybody who thirsts comes to me, I'm the living waters. And during the temple period, they would have performed what was called the water libation ceremony on this day, which would have been on the altar. They would pour wine down one side and water from the pools of Siloam, the pools of peace, down the other, to cleanse the temple, to cleanse the altar, everything in it. Which is why when the Roman centurion sticks a spear into the side of Messiah, when they see water and blood come out, blood and wine being interchangeable here, that was considered a sign pointing back to the day of the water libation ceremony, the 8th day of Sukkot in the temple when Messiah stood up. So it's this day that they attacked. So it wasn't just like a Maccabean situation where the Maccabees were attacked on Shabbat and they were like, that's it, behead everybody. We're fighting back. Right. This is like the highest holy day that there is in the religious calendar. So it was a big deal. If I was going to plan an attack on Israel, it's probably the day I would have picked as well, because it's not just Shabbat. It's the biggest Shabbat of the year.
So I have a comment on all that, because again, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I definitely am not an expert, but I've been really paying attention a little bit, knowing that, I don't know, for some reason, this has really hit me a little bit. Like, it's really intrigued me, the history of it, as well as just curiosity and kind of really like sadness for humanity on some level, that some people, just the hatred amongst people, and even in our own country. Right. But like, so you have this anniversary, this 50th anniversary, right? You have 1,200 Hamas soldiers coordinated to enter Israel at ready, set, go, right? The Gaza Strip, only, like, I'm going to make this number up, 30 by 6, right? So it's not that big when from the air, like when you're coming into land at an airport, like 20 miles out, you're already on the ground, you're paying attention, right? So throw some drones up there, paying attention. You would think that there would be more, I don't know, like, I just feel like there's definitely would have been like stuff going on, like people lining up underground, above ground, movement, weird things happening. Like, I feel like somebody had to know or have seen something, and I would, if as a country, again, not playing Battleship in any way, that this anniversary, I would be on heightened alert, right?
Yeah.
But nobody was.
Well, it's not just,
and I'm asking, I'm just curious, because again, I'm only paying attention because it happened, right? So now you backtrack to look for signs, right? So just curious,
that border along like the Gaza Strip, right? I think it's something like 36 miles. There's something like 10,000 cameras and sensors along that 36-mile stretch. Okay, well, somebody's got to look at those. and if that somebody's also on Shabbat, or
Mhm.
what's your posture of readiness
Mhm.
here? Do we expect an attack? Yeah. Are we like rifles
Yeah.
loaded, just ready to flip the safety off, looking over the wall? No,
Right,
not on
right.
that day. And I know you guys are very closely affiliated with Carl at Tactical Rifleman. Great guy. One of the guys on Carl's training team is Imri Morgenstern, and
Yep.
Imri was IDF. He's
Yep.
a great guy. He's got a channel called Prime Combat Training, and Imri has been talking with people in the IDF since this has started. And so this is secondhand information I'm about to give you, but in a video that he posted on Patreon a couple days ago, he was talking about how as these paragliders came in with these dune buggies on parachutes, that was only a couple of dozen of those. And yes, Hamas did attack with boats as well, but the vast majority of the forces that came in from Hamas came in through tunnels. And
Mhm.
so there was no, we can see them, we can
Right.
feel them
Mhm.
or hear them with our sensors. They came in through tunnels that a tunnel network that had been dug for years, if not decades, that
Right.
terminated underneath the combat outposts of the Israelis. So they popped up inside the base and started shooting. And so that's why almost immediately 1,000 to 1,200 of these Hamas terrorists literally come up out of the ground inside your combat outpost, start shooting, kill everybody. And so Israel started taking heavy losses immediately, which is what allowed Hamas to gain so much ground and come in basically unnoticed. The boats out in the Mediterranean and the paragliders in the sky, those were the distraction for the 1,000 to 1,200 people that came in through the tunnels. And it's interesting, not to jump into this rabbit hole, but it's interesting that those tunnels are the exact same type of tunnels that have been turning up along our southern border that CPB has been complaining about, trying to wave a flag on for the last decade, that we have located Palestinians south of the border, providing subject matter expertise to the cartels to dig these tunnels as well. So,
Well, and that's something I wanted to talk about as well. I mean, the tunnel strategy has been with us for a long time. You think about North Korea, South Korea, and there are tunnels that move from north to south that are, they're sized, you could fit an entire brigade through these things. And so, you have to pop out the last remaining little bit and then you're there. I mean, I'm not making this up. This is well studied. And seismographic analysis can pick these things up too. So one of the tactics is you blow a couple, you drop some mini bombs on these tunnels and collapse them, right? But how many are there? How do you track them all? 100%. And so, that's one thing I wanted to really cover off, because if Israel is the little devil, we, the America are the big devil. And Hamas is not stopping with Israel. All these terrorist organizations are not stopping with Israel. They want Israel dead and they want America dead. You said it. We're the biggest benefactor for Israel. That's a reality. We all know this, and thank goodness we've signaled that support and continue to signal that support. I actually think that Joe did a decent job in saying the right things. It took him 2 days, but he finally said the right things, and I was happy about that. I was proud about that. But at any rate, it is no secret that our southern border is more open than it's ever been before. And you look at the numbers coming in, it's not just Mexico, Central America, South America. Even if they pose as Central Americans, they're not. I mean, there is clarity that Russians are coming in, Ukrainians are coming in, India, Turkey, China. I mean, those are the ones that are identifying. And then there's this big other bucket. So it concerns me. But what do you think is going on with the possibility of, if folks are over here already in sleeper cells? That's one possibility. And there's going to be an uprising. Randy Brown mentioned in the comments, said tomorrow is this Muslim day of redemption, this uprising, right? So they're calling for that. Okay, so tomorrow, we're talking about how'd they miss it? Are we ready for tomorrow? I don't know. But even if it's not sleeper cells, how tough would it be for a band of these folks to fly their little hang gliders and dune buggies across the southern border and do the same thing in Arizona towns, New Mexican towns, Texas towns, you name it? We are sitting ducks.
It would actually be quite easy for them to do that, which is unfortunate. I believe the numbers just came out this morning. CPB was talking about over the last 20 years, they released the numbers over the last 20 years of the people they interdicted, not the gotaways, of the people that they interdicted. More than 90% of the people who came are still here and never claimed asylum at all. We just let them through. And of those, I believe just in Syria was 58,000 Syrians. Okay, how did they get on the southern border, right? And then Jordanians and Lebanese and Palestinians. And so, and then you add in the Chinese military age males. Sleeper cells, yeah, probably. I forget the dude's name. He's the former head of Hamas, is calling for a global jihad beginning tomorrow.
Right.
Now, in other parts of the world, it's almost tomorrow already, right? So which international dateline, or what side of the international dateline are we on? But I definitely think tomorrow is a great day to have your head on a swivel, because if you live in a high population density area that has, for lack of a better term, a lot of ethnic diversity, it's quite possible that we see follow-on attacks here on American soil. Do we, America et al., have the ability to deal with that? Depends. We didn't really have the ability to deal with, the World Trade Center getting bombed twice. Right? People forget the 91 bombing.
That's right.
It was bombed twice.
Yep.
And it gets back to how did Israel not see these attacks coming? Somewhere on somebody's desk are reams of papers of reports that nobody has had time to read. All of that intelligence product has been produced, but it's never been correlated. It's never been distributed. It might be actionable, but it's not put in the hands of the action people. And so having it being inundated by data doesn't make you any more ready to respond than if you didn't have the data in the first place. So do we have the homegrown capability to deal with these attacks? Probably not. I imagine that right now there's a whole bunch of alphabet soup boys that are targeting people as we speak, but everything else will be reactionary rather than proactive, because we don't know where all those people are. We don't know what those people are going to do. And sleeper cells are basically indwelt amongst the population, waiting for a dog whistle from their handler to go active. That dog whistle might have been that Hamas dude saying, hey, global jihad 1013, get after it, boys. And so I truly hope that tomorrow is just another day on the calendar, no big deal. But I have a very firm suspicion that it's going to be a lot more than that. And unfortunately, I think it will be in high population density areas, because that's where terrorists get the bang for their buck. Nobody's driving to eastern Oklahoma to set off a VBET. There's nobody here, right? But New York, Dallas, Chicago, San Francisco, LA, Miami, yeah, because there's people there. Where did Hamas attack 6 days ago? They went to a rave because there's people there, right? Most bang for your buck. And so I think there's a strong possibility that we do see some bad stuff happening tomorrow. I hope that's not the case, but heads on a swivel, boys and girls.
Eric and I were talking about this maybe yesterday. I don't know. We've been talking about it all week, but I was like, the difference between the way like the Israelis, Palestinians, Saudis, Afghanistan people, Afghanis fight. They fight a long game. Like they start 10 years ago, right? They're patient. So like those cells and things that you say have here, Eric and I said they went to college here, they got married here. Now they get the call and they're out. But no, they couldn't have been. They're high regarded citizens and people and your neighbors. And no, they brought me cookies they went to my 40th birthday party. But they infiltrate, like long game. Americans are an 8-second swipe society, stolen focus, right? So they know how to hunker down and dig tunnels, play the game, educate, become citizens. But this is where Eric and this is why, Bear, I think that you're a great voice on this, is that these wars aren't like, I hate my brother because he doesn't like this. It's like religious wars. These like higher than your life or your family's life. This is your God, right? So it's a whole different level of like sacrifice, service, and long game for your country, for your God, for your, country's future.
So
Chosen
admitting my biases, I am a follower of Messiah. And I also keep the Old Testament commands to the best of my ability. Right. I'm so Christian. The Christians don't like me anymore, and the Jews don't know what to do with me. Right. And I'm totally cool with that. But I'm a firm believer in the Most High and his son, Yeshua HaMashiach, as the world knows him, Jesus Christ. If you take this back, I've seen a lot of pieces that have been produced in podcasts and on YouTube and written articles in the last few days about where did this start? The strife between Israel and Palestine, where did this come from? And a lot of people rewind about 80 years ago to when the League of Nations took an area of land and gave it to the young Israeli nation. And that originally that chunk of land was called Palestine. So they carved out a little piece of it. This will be the home of the Jews. Almost got eradicated by Hitler during World War II. They need a homeland. Awesome. Well, the Palestinians hated that and they want their land back. You go far enough back, there was this guy. His name was Abram or Avram, later renamed to Abraham. And his wife, Sarah, couldn't get pregnant. She was without child. And so she said, hey, I'll give you my handmaid Hagar, and maybe she can bear you a son. And so she does. And that's Ishmael. And later on, the father, the creator, comes to Abraham 3 days after he's been circumcised, which is not a great day to receive company, right? Because he's a grown man, just had his foreskin lopped off, right? And it's not like he's got ice on it. He lives in the desert. And God shows up at his tent, right? And he's like, hey, Abram, I got to talk to you. And so Abram jumps up, fixes him a meal, and they hang out and they talk. And he says, your wife, Sarah, I mean, what else do you do? Like, you want a cup of coffee, God? I mean, we got some croissants. What are you into? And he says, hey, your wife, Sarah, will bear you a child. And Sarah laughs at God. Like, she just bursts out. She's 90 years old. So much so she's like, am I to have pleasure in my old age, my Lord? Which to me, I read that. She's like, I'm 90. I'm going to have another big O. What are you talking about? Right. And so God tells her, hey, listen, you're going to have a baby. And she does. And that's Isaac, the son of the covenant, the son of promise. So later in Genesis, it's recounted that Ishmael and Hagar are kicked out. The reason they're kicked out is because on the day of Isaac's weaning, which was Shavuot, which is it's a biblical feast. It's the day that the father makes and reestablishes covenants with his people. The day that Isaac was to be weaned, traditionally believed to be his second birthday because Isaac was born on Shavuot. Anyway, in the tent, Rebecca's tent, or Sarah's tent rather, with Isaac is Ishmael, and he's got a bow drawn and he's pointing the arrow at Isaac and he's going to kill him. And so Sarah goes to Abraham, is like, we got to get rid of this kid. And they kick him out. And the father says, look, that first son, Ishmael, who you had, is not the son of the covenant. Isaac is the son of the covenant. He will be the one who brings forth this promise that I made to you to be my chosen people. Ishmael is the father of the Ishmaelites. Ishmael, Islam, Muslim. They have, from the beginning of time, since the time of Abraham, have had a bow pointed at the son of the covenant, the descendants of Isaac, and then Jacob, Israel, and then the 12 tribes, which believers now, Romans 11, are grafted into. And so this goes back 3,500 years. Ishmael has wanted to kill Isaac for 3,500 years. We're still dealing with today the sons of Ishmael and the sons of Isaac, and they don't get along, and they've never gotten along, and they're not ever going to get along until this whole freaking world ends and Messiah comes back and fixes everything. And for just so we're all tracking, when I say fixes everything, read the book of Revelation. He comes back with a sword, and you're either on Team Messiah or you're dead, one or the other. And I don't want to jump into that rabbit hole because I'd be preaching at you for the next half an hour. But suffice it to say, this goes back a long time. This is a family feud that has existed for 3,500 years.
So I can I just go back to this history lesson? I got this whole like little football thing of what you said as you were saying it. So Sarah has Isaac when she's 90, but she was like, hey, Abraham, it's okay, take Hagar. And they have a child, but it wasn't the chosen child of God. Is this what I'm saying?
Correct.
So they two brothers hating each other.
The Hebrew scriptures.
So so God was saying, God was siding with, I'm just going with me as a history lesson. God was siding with Isaac, saying you're chosen. Ishmael is not.
So Ishmael is still made essentially a prince. He will be the father of many nations, which he is today. There's 22 Muslim nations surrounding 22 Muslim nations surrounding Israel. Ishmael is the father of many nations, the son of the covenant, who will be the progenitor of the father's chosen people. That's Isaac. And that,
so it will not be the Muslim nations.
So the thing is
that biblically?
I've heard this way too. It's the difference between the two camps is one wants the other one dead. And that is the only answer. And that is not the case. So if it were Israel and Palestine, and Israel said, we want peace, or we're going to put down our arms, they would be instantly slaughtered. They would be wiped out. If Palestine said, we want peace, there would be peace. There would be peace. Israel respects Palestine's desire to have its a place, and they've dealt with that, right? They've dealt with it since the UN separated the thing out, and they've given land back to Egypt. They've given land back, the West Bank. They had that at one point in time. They've given it back in return for peace. So that's the big difference here. One side wants the other side completely dead and won't stop until that happens. There's glorification of terrorists, and hey, I'm going to blow myself up so that I can go get the 70 virgins. Right? There's all that. It is a puzzle, and it is deep, and so we all get that. But it's not going to end until, as you say, Bear, it ultimately all ends.
So the going to the prophecy of Messiah, right? If we ever see peace in the Middle East in our lifetime, you better get ready for tribulation, homies. Like, everybody wants peace in the Middle East. And every time I see there's, the Abraham Accords have gone a long way towards, I wouldn't call it peace, but coming to some type of détente, right? Ceasefire, maybe. There's a big difference between a ceasefire and peace. But when there's peace in the Middle East, watch out. Like, it's just a matter of time. We go from, and this is Old Testament prophecy, we get peace in the Middle East. We have the abomination of desolation that the prophet Daniel talked about, which Messiah references in Matthew chapter 24. And then we kick off the big show, 7 years of tribulation. And then at some point, Messiah, during that time, comes back and is like, that's it. Everybody gets a sword. And so it's, now I realize that's not very PC, right? But I'm speaking from a biblical standpoint here. From a biblical standpoint, that's what the timeline looks like. The Palestinians, the Muslims, and the Jews are never going to get along. There may be détente. There may be ceasefire at times. There's never actually going to be peace. The whole foundational core concept of Hamas is Israel must cease to exist. You can't negotiate with that. That's what you were talking about, Eric. If Israel were to lay down their arms, they'd be destroyed in 24 hours. If Palestine laid down their arms, there'd be peace and prosperity in the Middle East. And they're just, those two worldviews are diametrically opposed. And you can't negotiate with somebody who's got a gun pointed at your head. When somebody has a gun pointed at your head, the only way you're going to win that is by being better at gunfighting than they are. That's why Israel has one of the best militaries in the world. I mean, they're a little tiny country, 9 million people. They got almost 600 combat aircraft. Go ahead.
I was looking at the stats on that where they called up 360,000. That's our whole population of the U.S. for 9 million people to go fight and cross into that 30 mile by 60.
You mean Jews here in the U.S. or no? There's a lot more Jews.
No. I'm saying that Israel called up 360 reservists.
Right.
The amount of people that are in the U.S. right now as a population are what are going to line up to Gaza.
It was
360,000. Sorry.
360,000.
330
Oh, million. Right. Sorry. Different math. I forgot it's zero.
I'm like,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Forgot.
That would
That's
be-
why I was like, I was shocked at that number. Forget
well,
that
no
number.
wonder you're shocked, but it's a large number. It's a very large
It's a large
number.
percentage.
Yeah, but one of the things that's very disturbing for me is seeing the pro-Hamas rallies, and it seems like people think this is like a social justice pep rally opportunity. It's just become so vogue, to go out, and I don't know, but it's really bothering me, especially in the big cities, especially on college campuses, and how anyone can condone Hamas and the vicious, barbaric actions that they did in killing women, children, cutting heads off babies, sticking swords in pregnant women, cutting babies out of pregnant women. This happened. Now, Lord knows we do our fair share of cutting babies out of pregnant women here, but this was brutality beyond belief. And for anyone to say, I'm for Hamas, how does that happen? That's when I really, really worry about the future of America. The future of America, how we just nod our head like, okay, it's just another protest.
Remember, Eric, I said that their information warfare is afoot here, right? These the people that are here in America, that, my opinion, that's why you asked me on the show, is my opinion, right? So I guess I need to quit apologizing for the things I'm about to say. So take everything I say with a grain of salt if you don't like it. If you are an American that supports Palestine, you're deranged. It's barbaric. It's absolutely barbaric what the Palestinians are doing and have been doing to the Israelis. And I've seen a lot of these protests where people are, like on college campuses, queers for Palestine. Go try that over there. They will throw you off of a tall building, smiling while recording it for social media. Like, the whole reason you are allowed to, as a queer, have an opinion about Palestine is because you live in the United States of America, where we might not agree with you, but you have a constitutionally protected, God-given right to be as right or wrong about a subject as you want. Over there, it's their way or we kill you. And gosh dang, man, there's a part of me that wishes we did live in biblical times. And I do think that what we're seeing right now with Israel, the way they're prosecuting this war with Hamas, is shades of biblical, because they are destroying everything. Israel has bombed more than 12,000 targets, 12,000 since the war started. We're on day 6. So that's 2,000 a day, okay, since the war started in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank. They are eradicating the safe holds for Hamas. If you read Numbers chapter 25 through 30, these are some of the people that the Father says, hey, you're not allowed to intermarry with these people. You're not allowed to do business with these people. You're not allowed to hang out with these people. Do not intermingle. And a lot of these nations, like I said, I talk about Isaac and Ishmael. It also goes back to the 3 sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, right? Shem was the father of the Hebrews. Then you get Abraham, so forth and so on. Ham was the father of the Canaanites. Well, that land that was supposed to be the promised land for Shem and the father's chosen people, Ham took. And so in Numbers 25, when the Israelites are they're maneuvering through territory that's not theirs yet, the father's like, do not marry these people, do not hang out with these people, I have nothing to do with these people. And then in the book of Joshua, when they go in to take the land by force, and that's something that a lot of people miss, the promised land was not handed to the Israelites. It was 5 years of open warfare, bit by bit by bit, taking the land by force. The Israelites were instructed by the Father to put everyone under the ban. And under the ban is a polite biblical term for kill everybody. Because, I mean, if we believe in an omniscient Father who is not subject to 4-dimensional space-time, AKA he knows what's going to come in the future, these people will not allow you to exist. They will behead babies. They will rip open pregnant women. They will slit the throats of fathers in front of their children before they machine gun the children to death, as has been recorded and documented by Hamas on social media. We're talking about 2 different grades of human being here. And I have my own personal issues with the nation state of Israel. But again, the nation state of Israel and I can coexist. Hamas wants people like me and people like Israel dead. They want Americans dead. And it should be very easy, I think, for most people to just be able to simply realize, as an American, if you support any type of militant Islam or any type of Palestinian pro-activity in the Middle East, you're essentially killing yourself on a long enough timeline. They want all of us dead, not just Israel. Israel's the little Satan. America's the great Satan.
That's right. That's right. You know, so one of the things that is developing now is a lot of talk about American hostages. I think the number I've seen is 14 unaccounted for. Not sure how many are hostages. I think that's about there's 150 is the number I've seen in total hostages that have been taken up by Hamas and are being used as human shields, probably, or they'll be summarily executed at Hamas's desire to make a point and videotaped and broadcast all over the place. Who knows? But those 14 Americans, that's what I know. There are special operations in the area. There have been special operations in the area because we've got them at the embassy and we've got them in other places, I'm sure. What do you think the United States involvement will be to try to rescue those hostages? And you know, quite honestly, it's probable that that we're going to have Navy SEALs, Delta, Rangers, who knows, go in and probably lose life to rescue those American Israelis. When do you think that's going to happen? Is it going to happen? What would happen if it does happen and something bad goes down?
That's already happening. As of 48 hours ago, Israel was reporting, and there were several different media outlets that were reporting that U.S. Special Forces advisors were working with the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, for hostage rescue. And then yesterday afternoon, I believe it was, the Daily Mail said that both Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 were over there, which is interesting because neither of those units go by those monikers anymore. But you're talking CAG, formerly Delta, and DevGru, formerly Team 6, are over there in country right now working with the IDF. One of the things that Emery Morgenstern was talking about in a video that he did was that some of the initial units that responded once Hamas had broken through with the tunnels, 1,000 to 1,200 combatants, and were taking out the Israeli combat outposts, some of the units, initial units to respond, were their versions of Delta and Team 6, and they suffered incredibly high casualties because you're talking a 10 or 12 man unit versus 1,000 guys. And so the Israeli subject matter expertise on hostage rescue suffered a significant amount of attrition on day one of the war. And again, the Americans and Israelis being so tight with economic aid, military aid, diplomatic aid, of course we probably already had SF there. And then as far as bringing in tier 1 units like CAG and DevGru, it's a no-brainer. I was just waiting for actual confirmation, assuming that they were already en route. And now, according to the Daily Mail, they are. What does that look like for us going forward? I imagine it's just a matter of time before we begin getting reports of American servicemen, American servicewomen that are injured or killed in this war. And then that might be the type of casus belli that gets the Americans directly involved in a war in Israel. We currently have the Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group in the Mediterranean. The CVN-69 fighting Ike is en route as well. We moved B-1 Lancers to the UK to begin stationing them closer to the Middle East if we need to start doing bombing runs through there. It's looking potentially ugly for Americans to get involved. Right now, the talking points per Ice Cream Grandpa, the President of the United States of America, is that we are there, our carrier strike groups are there. We're moving all these pieces on the chessboard in place to keep other Muslim nations in the region from acting out against Israel. And so it's more of a defensive posture rather than an offensive posture.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something inside of me the moment they started tasking a carrier strike group into that region. Israel has 584 fixed wing combat aircraft. They've got 81 rotor wing, combat aircraft. To put strikes on the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. They have everything they need and more. Why do we have a carrier strike group there? My thoughts initially went to Iran. But I don't know if this regime that we have in Washington, D.C. right now, this administration asterisk, has the balls for an open confrontation with Iran.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, screw it, let's get it over with. We're headed that direction anyway. The other part of me, you know, I'm not in a hurry. Even though I know where I'm going when I die, I'm not in a hurry to die. And the potential for this to actually be World War III is massive. Yep. There's been a lot of talk about World War III, both with the Russia-Ukraine war and then with all of these military coups that we've seen in the Sahel, the Northwestern African region. But this Middle Eastern war, in light of the 30-some military coups in the Sahel, in light of the Russian special military operation in Ukraine, add all this together, the only reason we don't have a world war yet is because we haven't called it World War III. We're pushing 3 continents of warfare right now. So, and then we have the depleting stockpiles of arms and ammunition that the United States defense contractors are saying we can't even replenish our current needs, let alone start a second front war in Israel. Again, if I was Russian, what a great strategy. So I don't know exactly what this looks like, but it has the potential to get ugly.
Well, I think it goes back to what you were saying before about what are all the pieces of the puzzle that are at play here. And it's something that's a big question. Can the U.S. handle everything that the world is throwing at us right now? Russia, Ukraine, Israel, China, Taiwan, North Korea, South Korea, our southern border, you know, attacks at home, etc. Because at some point you just run out. And let's face it, you know, NATO has not really stepped up to the plate either. So I believe that the carrier group and all that is definitely a deterrent and posturing for everybody else stop, just freeze, freeze frame. Let Israel take care of business. We're there to back them up, big brother, hanging out off the shore. And if anybody tries anything goofy, then, you're inviting America. From what I see right now, Bear, it's going to be a very methodical next step for Israel. And let's face it, they're posturing outside of Gaza. They're getting ready. They're going to start the ground offensive very shortly. They're dropping leaflets saying, "Get out of Gaza right now." Now, from what I understand, is Egypt, the neighbor next door, the only possible way they can go, because they can't swim out to sea. They got to go to Egypt. Egypt's not very excited about them coming over either, right? But
No.
But at least Israel is saying, look, you got 72 hours, whatever it is, to get out of Dodge, and then we are going to turn that place into a parking lot. And if you're still there, don't blame us, because we just warned you. And I guess that's where the hostages come into play, because Hamas is going to be sitting there still with the hostages, and other innocent people are going to lose their life as a result.
But again, Eric and I talked about this as well, right? That this is where being a leader is the worst, right? You've got 14 people against a nation. Am I going to have to kind of sacrifice those 14 people? No, we don't want to. That's why the special forces are there. But in the game of holy wars and generational wars, 14 for the country, it's a numbers game, and it's a horrendous game to have to play, because every life is valuable.
Well, going back to leadership, I think it depends a lot on the leader, because why can't it be both at the same time?
Love it.
We know that they have. We have to assume that Israel has operational intelligence about the location of where these hostages are being held. We know that Hamas is producing social media content around where these hostages are being held, and there are entire suites of alphabet soup agencies dedicated to image intelligence, right? They can tell because of the type of brick that is, that it's in this region over here. Very, very good. And so, and the DOD and Joint Chiefs have been very blatant about they're literally working around the clock on this problem, and I believe them. So if we know in this one region, or we believe that we know in this one region, that there are 7 of the 14 hostages here, cool. So that grid square right there, We're not going to attack that with conventional munitions and ground forces and airstrikes currently. We're going to be, I don't know, 10, 12, 40 grid squares away. That one right there, we'll save that one until we've confirmed that there are no hostages there. And so it's entirely possible with good enough intel to do both at the same time. In the Gaza Strip, the southernmost border of the Strip borders Egypt, and there was, I believe, one kind of like border patrol checkpoint there that was attacked by Israel, was bombed by Israel a couple days ago, and the people inside of the Gaza Strip, roughly 2 million people, the Palestinians were saying, hey, we don't have anywhere to go. So thanks for letting us know you're going to flatten this place in 3 days. It's not possible for us to leave. That's one of the few legitimate gripes on behalf of the Palestinians, I think, that stands. It's one thing to say you have 3 days to get out or we're killing you. If you have nowhere to go, now what? It also, who exactly is fleeing across that southern border now that Egypt and Israel have basically negotiated a pass-through for those Palestinians? You know, live to fight another day is kind of the motto of a terrorist, right? On the one hand, they love to blow themselves up so they can martyr themselves and get their 70 virgins. On the other hand, oh, we tried to bomb the Twin Towers in 91, didn't work. We'll come back a decade later when you forgot about us and fly a plane into it or whatever. And so just like we have issues on our southern border as far as knowing who it is that's crossing the border, Israel is going to have those same issues with people who are fleeing from the Gaza Strip into Egypt as to who exactly that is that's going. But again, I actually agree with Israel's technique here of we are going to level everything to the ground. There will be nothing for you to return to. There will be no Palestinian state, because when we are done with it, this land will not support life. And not only is that biblical, I think it's very logical as well. At how many times do you have to have your people taken hostage? You have to have, V-beds. You have to have rocket artillery, lone gunmen. How many times, how many decades of that do you have to take before you're like, screw it, level it? So much so that Bibi Netanyahu's prime opposition in the Knesset there, they've laid down their arms, they've laid down their disagreements, and they formed a 5-person war cabinet where the joint statement from the war cabinet was all of our political differences are going to be set aside until we are done with this war. Unified front. We are destroying anything that even kind of resembles Palestine, and we'll worry about everything else when we're done.
Wow. It's hard to say anything. Hard to add anything to that. I think you just nailed it. You completely nailed it. Hey, Bear, we've got about 10 minutes left, and there's a couple things I want to do. One is I want to acknowledge some of the super chats out there. Bobby, if we can do that. And then also, if you have a question for Bear, we've got an opportunity to probably put up 3 or 4 and let Bear address the pack. Okay. So first off, let's hit those super chats real quickly.
I think they're 70%.
Can you read those? I'm having difficulty.
Dano not in the lion's den. So that's Daniel not in the lion's den. Thank you. I think you hit us up 3 times. Is that?
Thank you. What does he say?
He says, coffee. Am I saying that? Coffee for all you and beer and Bear. Is that?
No room for tucked weenie men or women today. Be the children of God, Christ's example.
I like
okay.
Bobby's
thank
taking
you.
it.
Thank
it's like
you,
the
Dano.
voice of God in the back.
Bobby, it looks like you can read better. Go ahead. Hit him up.
Costello Outdoors. Just coming in, going to rewind to the beginning. Shalom, y'all. Praise ya.
Thank you.
Be safe, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Dano, not in the lion's den again.
That's what I'm saying. I think he's got 3 up there.
Becky and Bear, you can stop speaking the truth, but why would y'all? We don't stop short.
You guys need to notify.
Thank you, Dano.
Okay.
Dano again.
Dano's on a roll here.
Dano is getting some
Dano, you better
time.
save some of that for some survival food. Come on now.
Plant seeds, pull weeds.
Plant seeds, pull weeds. Thank you, Dano. That's awesome.
I do like that. Don't forget to subscribe, notify.
Dano, lastly.
Dano!
He gave me his word and sword.
Yeah, gave me his word and sword. Amen.
Yep.
Is that it?
That's it for the super
That's
chat.
it? That's
okay, awesome. Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Dano, especially. Okay,
and Mike.
so go ahead.
I want to interject real quickly. Between our 2 channels, on the Bear Independent channel and the Nutrient Survival channel, there's like 2.8 thousand people watching right now.
Wow.
Are you kidding?
That's
awesome. Are you kidding me?
That's
How are
awesome.
you simulcasting? That's crazy.
I hit a button in StreamYard because I'm a pseudo professional.
Awesome.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
You
That is
got
so
button
cool.
skills,
That is so
eh?
cool. Now, hey, Bear, one thing before we open it up for questions, you are going on a national tour right now. I don't know if I can broadcast it or not, because
He's trying to live his life
you're going
as a
to
gray man.
you're going to hit the road, and you're doing that very purposefully. Can you just fill that in for some of the folks here?
Absolutely. In the next few days, I'll be driving halfway across the country to the East Coast, and I'm going to be on a series of podcasting at a series of live events to be talking about raising awareness for Caleb House, Caleb with a K, calebhouse.org, which is our juvenile human trafficking survivor restoration facility, which is a bunch of $50 words for the place where we put kiddos back together again after they've been trafficked and serially raped by assholes. And so I'll be on the Michael Rood show. I'll be at Mountain Readiness, mountainreadiness.com. There's not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, there's a fundraiser for Caleb House at their Fallout 2023 Fallout. This is like their fall event. And I may be making a surprise stop in Camden, Tennessee along the way. So yeah, I'll be around doing some things.
Is that near Reno?
Yeah, right.
Just
No, it's not. But you know what? When we got to hang out when we go out for SHOT Show. We'll be in Vegas, so maybe we'll
Oh yeah,
we'll figure
it's a hop,
something
skip,
out.
and a jump, an hour flight.
That's right around the corner, right? And we've got a couple new initiatives happening down that neck of the woods with Prairie Fire. That's another company that's owned by the same investor of Nutrient Survival, as well as Staccato 2011 is opening up Prairie Fire. It's the former Front Sight range complex. So it's amazing. They're doing a great job down there. So we could probably get you a special VIP tour down to that, Bear. Now,
That
Bobby, do we have
sounds
any big
terrible.
questions?
I wasn't starring any. The only one I managed to star was Linda Bopp.
All right, Linda. Let's see.
So-
What does Linda say?
Question for Bear, please, Bobby. Will it carry through this weekend as well?
What?
The war.
The war? Yeah.
Yeah. So this war's not stopping anytime soon. And the domestic threat here in the United States of America, and I would add the Western world, because we've already seen protests in Sydney, Australia, at that big opera house that they have there. Some 2,000 mostly peaceful protesters showed up and started setting things on fire, and it's likely to get bad. I hate saying that, and I do not like fear as a motivator. And nobody within the sound of my voice has permission to freak out because of what I'm saying, okay? Fear is not what we're about. We're about proactive solutions to potential problems, mitigating risk through preparedness. It's likely to get bad tomorrow in at least some other places other than Israel because of this call for global jihad. And will that last through the weekend? Yes, that's the beginning. It's the call for the beginning of the jihad, and the jihad is not a one-day event. To what Becky was saying earlier, Americans, we've got the attention span of a goldfish, versus a lot of our enemies play the very long game. China has a 400-year plan. China is in the midst of a 400-year-long plan. Our country's not even that old. So will the threat last through the weekend? Yes. Will the threat be actualized? I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with where you live. I don't believe in Western Montana that there's going to be domesticated Palestinians setting cars on fire. That's probably not going to happen. I don't think in Oklahoma, or probably, anywhere out in the sticks, low population density, very likely to not have a problem. The juicy targets are the high population density areas. That's why, London is attacked, and Sydney is attacked, and New York City is attacked, because that's where the most people are. But yeah, the threat will absolutely last through the weekend. And the war, I bet every dollar I have lasts through the weekend, because it's probably going to last for months, if not years, hopefully not decades.
Right on. Well, not right on, but that's true. And Linda did clarify that she was talking about the head on the swivel, and you addressed both those points. So the war certainly, tomorrow, we pray, will not be a bad day. Chances are,
It's a Friday the
when
13th,
you've
though, which
got
is creepy.
yeah, when you've got a crazy terrorist leader calling for a global jihad, something is going to happen somewhere else. So, Bear, before we let you go, is there anything else you want to share with the community here, or your folks that are watching on your channel too?
No, man, I appreciate the invite. I don't think most people realize how highly I esteem nutrient survival. I do not partner with basically anybody about anything, to the point where I get solicitation emails every day from people. They're like, "Oh, please to send for you best knife for make of craft bush in woods," smile face. And I'm like, reject, not interested, right? But nutrient survival has been so good to us as far as Grindstone, our disaster ministry, is concerned. There's a high amount of ideological alignment between the Bear Independent crew and nutrient survival, and you guys are just really genuine people. And I don't put a lot of companies or individuals up on a pedestal, but I legitimately love you guys. You're awesome. You've always been great to us. And if the world is getting stupider by the day, right? It just keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder. And one of the things we talk about all the time is food storage. And you should have short-term, intermediate, and long-term food storage. And if you don't have that problem licked yet, I would recommend getting some nutrient survival in addition to your corn, rice, wheat, and beans in your buckets and your cans and your jars and all that other stuff. And I'm not just a spokesperson. I'm also a client, because I have a bunch of it in my barn, and we eat it on the regular because it's delicious. So, and it's literally not possible to buy my endorsement. And so I'm saying that because it's good quality stuff, and you guys are excellent quality people.
Thank you, brother. We love you as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We don't have sheep in the backyard though, like
it's,
you.
It's true. I mean, Bear, he's such a generous guy. He actually says, don't even use my code. Use Carl's code, because you love Carl as well.
Use code Becky.
Anyway, TR10, right? No, not Becky. But anyway, Bear, we wanted to thank you. Thank you for your amazing ministries as well. You are an amazing person doing amazing things, and we are just so blessed to be able to have you here. You're a patriot. You're a survival expert. You're a spiritual warrior. You're an inspiration for so many of us. And we just pray that God continues to bless you and everything that you touch and your team touches. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you and thank you for taking my call 2 days ago to get this out there for people.
All right, go hit the road.
Appreciate you.
All right, Wolfpack. We'll see you next Thursday. God bless you.
Thank you. Bye.